Hi and welcome back to David Pattinson's Accused Friends. Today I want to do a video on the policing policy for the anti-lockdown political party. I thought that'd be a pertinent topic in light of recent events. But before I do, I wanted to remind everyone that you can now order your copy of the anti-lockdown freedom flag. This is the 1.5 meter version and it's pretty big, let me tell you. Now that it's officially protest season in the UK, you can order your own individual flag and take it to a protest near you. Looking forward to seeing these, being flown up and down the country as we move forward. So let me talk to you about some police ideas that I've been thinking about over the last 24 hours. And when I talk about police reform, I'm not referring to what they're doing in Minneapolis, which is defunding the police and disbanding the police and getting rid of the police. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about strengthening the police. It's pretty humiliating when we see British police officers getting chased down the streets of London by the mob. And, the Conservative Party are clearly not the law and order party that we need. They're a joke, quite honestly, and the police have become a total joke under their leadership. I think the number one point we need to emphasize in order to get policing back on track is to get the police totally out of politics. I mean, they've become so political, celebrating Transgender Day and kneeling in front of everyone and all this total nonsense. And, we need police with a serious backbone, and the kind of police leadership we've had in the country has been wholly political over the last sort of 10 years or so, and it's no surprise that police are no longer respected in our country, and I'm sorry to say that. So what we need to do is we also need to go back to equal justice. Instead of police kneeling in front of one group of people but not kneeling in front of another group of people, we need to be treating everyone the same. We pander to the grooming gangs, and yet we lock up or we prosecute and criminalise Jamie Griffiths for touching a girl on her waist in the park. I think it's a total joke, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree. I think we need to get out of describing protests as peaceful, or automatically. Why don't we just describe them as protests? Let the British people decide if they're peaceful or not peaceful. And under the anti-lockdown party, we're going to ensure that statues are kept intact. There won't be any defacing or tearing down of statues by protest mobs under policing as far as when the anti-lockdown political party is in charge. It's crazy to have our public memorials defaced and destroyed with no police consequences, and that's because people are not in fear of the British police, and they're not in fear of the consequences. We need to have police become an independent authority, and they need to be able and willing and encouraged to arrest members of the government who break the law. We need to get out of this culture of sort of prosecution for profits, which is what Alison Saunders was all about, and sales target culture and all this kind of nonsense. Policing needs to be going after the toughest, hardest criminals and working down from there. And, rather than sort of charge and ask questions later, let's get prosecutions going, when there's overwhelming evidence and when there's a clear need. There's been stories in the news about these police have been charging people under this lockdown law, and, all these cases have had to be thrown out because they say, police weren't aware of the law. But if they're not aware of the law, why are you charging people? Why don't you wait to make sure you fully understand the law, and if in doubt, you don't charge, rather than if in doubt, would charge anyway. We need to also get out of misinformation by the police. And, I think that brings us back to this sort of Madeleine McCann story, which has been used as a front to sort of cover up the pathetic policing that's been going on through all these Black Lives Matter protests. And of course, what the Madeleine McCann case does is it, of course, exposes the police cover-up of the Madeleine McCann case. It's not that complicated to understand that when the cadaver dogs are barking in the apartment, it's because there was a body in the apartment. It's not complicated to understand that when the cadaver dogs are barking at the rental car, is because there was a body in the rental car, and the police have spent millions. Operation Grange, 13 years. It's all been a total lie to deceive the British people deliberately, and all the police officers involved in this now need to be prosecuted, and a police force that can hold police accountable for deliberate subversion of the truth, I think needs to be enabled and encouraged. I think it's now time that we had a citizen's prosecution of Cressida Dick for turning the British police into an international laughingstock. I don't want people to think of me as David Pattinson's that guy that's constantly prosecuting different people every time he does a video. I started this with Alison Saunders because she was breaking the law, but I never anticipated that by peeling back the surface layers, there'd be so much other criminality and government underneath it. But you have to call it out when you see it. It's not enough to just sack these people and give them £1 million pension. If people in positions of high responsibility are undertaking such a dereliction of duty, like Cressida is, like Alison Saunders is, like Rishi is, they need to be criminally responsible for their actions. I mean, do a bad job, okay, get rid of them. But when you do a horror show of a job, that becomes criminal in my view, and I think a police force needs to be aware of that, and they need to be making sure Cressida Dick's prosecuted. If they don't, the British people will step up and do it. I think we also need to look at the Conservative Party at the end of all this and investigate whether they're committing fraud by calling themselves the Conservative Party. It's just so misleading. I was reading a story in the news, I think it was yesterday, about some guy who was impersonating a woman to sort of chat up young boys, and this guy was going to have to go to prison because he was misrepresenting himself. But the Conservative Party claimed to be conservative, and then they represent this to, the millions of people in our country to vote for them, but yet they're not remotely conservative, are they? I mean, who out there thinks the Conservative Party do anything that's remotely conservative? We can give them a different name. We can call them the Black Lives Matter Party. You can call them the Blatant Switch Party. You can call them the National Socialist Party. But one thing you cannot do with a straight face is call them the Conservative Party, and I think someone needs to look into it. I think we also need to get rid of all this unmarked and secret police stuff that came in after the September 11th terrorist attack. And it's always done in the name of, citizen safety and public safety. Under the anti-lockdown party, British police are going to be clearly marked. They're going to have the same uniform on. And there's not going to be any undercover secret police roaming around, spying on citizens, pretending to be civilians. I think that's totally wrong. And, I think the last thing I want to say is that all British police, especially those in leadership, but all who want to wear the badge, need to be thoroughly educated in British civil liberties and the English Bill of Rights, and their solemn duty is to defend those rights and protect the freedoms of the British people. And when they see members of the government violating them or threatening the British people, kind of like Hancock does every day, those people need to be put under arrest and put in handcuffs immediately. I'm sick to death of the civil liberties of our people just being walked all over pretty much on a daily basis. Police stand by and do nothing, and then they wonder why they're become so unpopular all of a sudden. So no excuse culture from the police under the anti-lockdown party would be the name of the game, and that would be yielding respect for the police. And that's what I want. I want respect for the police. But it's not up to me to stand up and say, hey, don't attack our police. It's up to the police to stand up for themselves, get up off their knees, and self-respect or respect themselves. Then other people can respect them. And I think that's the message I want to get across in this video. Policing's become a joke. We want it to be coming back to being strong. We're the country under Sir Robert Peel that invented the police. We should have the best police in the world, and we should have the most respected police in the world, and that's what we need to get back to. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that, and we'll look forward to chatting with you soon.